focusing on the professionalism and how becoming a professional athlete has changed the sport. We were very interested when we were talking to Ollie Phillips about the change of it being a career pathway into 15s, and how he's got to the sort of last part of his career, and with the opportunities that have come about through the Olympic Games, he's very much changed his focus to become an out-and-out sevens player. Is that something that you think we're going to see more of? Do you think that level of professionalism is a good thing for not just sevens but rugby as a whole? There are players who use, like you said during your time with England, who use it as a career pathway. Players like Ugo Monye. More recently, Tony Hanks let us know that Christian Wade had gone that same route. It was a development tool for him to go into 15s as opposed to just being sevens. Do you think sevens being a professional sport in its own right is going to be a positive thing for rugby?
My honest opinion is I don't think the games are different. So for me, I'd much rather see sevens as part of the development pathway into the 15s, because then I get to see the best players. You know, at the moment, as it stood, I wouldn't ever see a young Ben Foden or a young Ugo Monye, and I wouldn't see the benefit that being part of that sevens programme would have had for him to become in that England 15s. That's part of the romance of where this sport, you know, has come from. It doesn't detract away from the product, because the reality is a good rugby player is a good rugby player, whether he plays sevens or whether he plays 15s. You know, Matthew Tate exploded onto the scene as an 18-year-old on the sevens circuit, took the Commonwealth Games in 2006 by storm, went on to do all sorts of good things. You know, New Zealand have got any number of tales to tell about that. And just because it's seen as part of the pathway doesn't detract from that as a product, in the fact that you will still probably have a better sevens product if you have the benefit of being able to pick those players who may be young and on their who may be young players that are on part of their pathway. You know, that part is there for all to see. So I'm a little bit against it being kind of categorised as its own professional sport in its own right, because the reality is it is a format of the game of rugby union. I think if it's done correctly and in the right way, I think all rugby players should be given the opportunity to play in the Olympic Games. The reality is that does mean, though, aligning a lot of stakeholders and a lot of contracts to ensure that can be done, because if you get to the Olympic Games, you want each nation that participates to be in a position to field the strongest sevens team that they're able to field. You know, and I'm not saying it's an easy task to field, so it's a little bit easier for the likes of New Zealand and Australia, where they've just got themselves to contend with. They just need to get their internal stakeholders in place, be that kind of just rugby union or rugby league or so forth. When you look at the whole Team GB scenario, where we have three nations, England, Scotland and Wales, first and foremost we've got to decide on what format we're going to adopt, the hockey model or the British and Irish established Lions model, and then what stakeholders are involved here, rugby union, rugby league, just sevens players or just 15s. I mean, it's, you know, there's so much to be resolved, and it needs to be done quickly, because what you will need to be successful come the Olympic Games in 2016 is a leading period of circa 12 to 18 months, where once the players have made the decision this is what they're going to do for that 12, 18 months, that they can fully concentrate and buy into that programme. Because what you can't do in the modern game sevens is join up with a team and then play a week later. It doesn't matter how good a player you are, you cannot do that. You do need the ability to get the conditioning in place, because the conditioning is different, and you need the ability to feel your way in to understand how the different frameworks and strategies do work. So the transition period, where, you know, in the historic old days where you could go play 15s on a Saturday, then rock up and play sevens on the Sunday, at the elite level is not possible.